Hi guys, welcome to bike season. Now that the trails are all starting to clear and dry up, everybody's starting to get out on their bikes. Just wanted to go through a few little checks you should do before every ride. We call it the ABCs of our bike checks. Our first one is being our A. A is checking our tires for air. So give them a quick squeeze. You should be able to squeeze them with a thumb and finger each side, so it feels like an orange. Not too hard if you've been riding the roads to get your bike legs up, like some people have been doing around town. You may have had your tires pumped up a little firmer, but for the trail, we need a little bit of squish in those tires. When we're checking our B's, B is our brakes. All we're going to do with our B is squeeze the brake and give the bike a little push. If the brakes are on full and we're not moving, we know we've got some good braking action. One thing we do want to check with our brakes is how far the brake lever is coming into the handlebar. If it's coming all the way in or pretty close, that's a good indication that you either need some new brake pads or maybe that you need a bleed of your brakes because you've got air in the cables. We've got lots of bike shops in town all doing servicing now. So if you're not good with your bike service, and maybe this is your second year out on your bike, it's not brand new, then maybe you need to take your bike in for just a little quick service with the guys who know what they're doing. Once we've checked our B, we go on to C. And what we're looking at on C is our chain. So I want to see when I turn my cranks that this chain is spinning freely. Other thing we can do is we can just pick up the back wheel, just change gear, and check that it sounds to be moving freely. It's easier to do it when you're riding around. A good idea to do, just ride up and down the street where you are, changing up and down and making sure there's no slipping of your chain, because what can happen as your chain gets older, it can stretch and then you'll hear a little slipping action as it clicks as you're pedaling. So that might be an indication you might need a new chain this year. The other thing I'm looking at on my chain is what color it is. Your chain should be a nice silvery gray color. If it's black, then we know it's covered in oil and dirt, so we need to give it a clean. Giving it a good wipe down every ride with a rag, making sure we get all the dirt off, especially down here in your derailleur. You don't want the dirt building up on those cogs down there. So that's our ABC. We did say C's. We have a little S in there, which we look at for suspension. So if I turn my suspension on so it's open, I can give the front a squish down and the back a squish down. It's all sounding good, feeling good. What I do with my I've got some little rubber seat, little rubber discs on, which like little bands, and I'm going to move them down on the front and up on the back, so I know how much of my shock I'm using when I'm out on a ride. If when you give it a test you feel that you're pushing all the way down, what we call bottoming out, where you can use the whole of the shock just standing, then maybe you need some air in your shock. And we look at, as a general rule of thumb, all bikes have online telling you exactly how much pressure you should have in the shock for each bike, but as a general rule of thumb, the rear shock is roughly your weight in pounds. So if you're 140 pounds, that goes in the back. On the front, I'm 140 pounds, so it would be 70, because I remember it because there's two shocks here. So 70 in the front, 140 on the back. And you do that with a shock pump, not a normal air bike pump. They're a small little hand one. So that's our ABCs. If we've had our bike in storage, we need to make sure that they're nice and tight, that the wheel is not loose, gonna drop off. So we want to make sure all our wheel locking nuts, whether they're on nuts or whether they're on free spinning, that are all nice and tight. Same with your seat. If it's been stored, make sure your seat's not wobbly. You don't want that to fall off. Before you hit the trail, it's a good idea just to ride around down your driveway out around your street to see that it's changing gears okay. If you've got a seat dropper, same thing, making sure that one's working. So that's your bike, making sure your bike's good before you go. The other thing you want to check is making sure your helmet, making sure you've got no cracks in it. If you did have a fall on it, making sure it's not damaged anywhere. Any cracks needs a replacement helmet. Want to make sure it's fitting nicely. The triangles come around the ear, strap under the chin. You can't pull it over your chin, especially with your kids, making sure they can eat on it. That's a common thing they like to do. The other thing you should notice to see if the helmet fits good is you should be able to undo it, turn your head upside down, and the helmet doesn't fall off. So that should have you all ready for your ride, guys. Enjoy, and we'll see you on the trails. Stay safe, keep your distance, and don't forget to wash your hands.